After all this Christmas stuff, you wonder why on earth we are in Ecclesiastes. Well, those of you who grew up going to New Year's services might know, because this time of year Ecclesiastes always comes up. Well, why does Ecclesiastes come up? Because at the end of one year, at the beginning of another year, it's a good time, and over the next few days, all the TV stations will do all of these 2018, 2019, old years, new years, old years, new years, and Ecclesiastes fits right in on this. Now, this little diagram is from a YouTube site called The Bible Project, which is an outstanding source for all kinds of information about the Bible. And they run through every book of the Bible, usually with one or two videos where they draw a page like this that kind of encapsulates the entire book. And this is the book of Ecclesiastes, and it's found in the Old Testament, and it is the favorite book of the skeptic. Because the skeptic reads the book of Ecclesiastes and they don't know anything that's above the heavens, but everything that's beneath the sun, which is a phrase in Ecclesiastes that gets repeated and repeated again, below the sun, beneath the sun. It's all in Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes pays all of this attention to normal life as we live it. Without religion, without prayer, just all of this stuff, all down here, right here. And if you know anything about it, the book of Ecclesiastes, there's one word in Hebrew, hevel, that dominates the book. And if you know anything about the book in English, problem is you have all these other words because English translations can't quite grasp it. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. Life is meaningless. Or the older translation, vanity of vanities. Life is vanity. It's wind. It's chasing after the wind. It's smoke. You can't get a handle on life. It's hard to know. What the book of Ecclesiastes is really about, it's about an alpha male. Now, what do I mean by an alpha male? An alpha male is a man who is a man's man living life in this world to the fullest. It's the man that rises to the top of the hierarchy, to become president of the United States, to become wealthy, to become powerful, to have all of the kinds of things that men want in life and chase after in life. Now, some of you women are going to be listening to this, and on one hand, you're going to be saying, oh yeah, men are like that. And another side of you are going to be saying, I don't know how I really feel about men being like that. And another side of you is going to be saying, I might feel a little excluded in this sermon. So just hang on as we go through, because I think you'll understand why. And so here I have a list of some alpha males. And there's actually many different ways to be alpha males, but they all kind of come together in certain ways. So you have George Washington, who was very much an alpha male, and he was president of the country because he was tall and not too successful of a soldier in the French and Indian War, but very important in the Revolutionary War. And everyone trusted him, and he was a moral figure. But, you know, there was the slave thing and, you know, all that stuff. But he was an alpha male, and Thomas Jefferson was an alpha male, and yeah, there was the slave thing. But, you know, he's an inventor, and he was a philosopher, and he wrote the Declaration of Independence, and he was a man of the Enlightenment. Barack Obama is an alpha male because he was president of the United States, and in many ways Barack Obama is just the kind of man many men would love to be. And Barack Obama, in terms of his family, he has a beautiful wife, he has lovely daughters, he treats them well, and so many women look and say, well, that's the kind of alpha male we want. Some of these other men, maybe Thomas Jefferson, maybe Donald Trump, maybe Howard Hughes, some of you women are going to be saying, it's not the kind of alpha male I want. But here's one of the ironies about alpha men, is that women like alpha men. They like the bad boys. And I can get into a lot of psychology about it. Take my word for it, whether or not you want to admit it, it's just true. Watch your girlfriends go after the guys and say, why is she going after that guy? You know why, and you know it's not good for her, but she does it anyway. This happens again and again. Andrew Carnegie, titan of empire, banker, builder of libraries late in life because he was worried about what would happen when he would meet his maker. He was so shrewd in collecting all that money, and then it's like, Well, if I have to be called to account for what I'm going to do with this money, I'm going to want to give it away. But now, the Old Testament has this word chachma, or wisdom, that is associated with the contemporary definition of wisdom, but it's a little different. Contemporary definition of wisdom leans towards a virtuous and a moral posture according to our contemporary moral standards. But the Hebrew definition is a little broader. It isn't quite weighted the same way. It's excellence and success, and it's all about achieving your goals and being successful, of winning. That's really more the nuance of the Old Testament word wisdom. And today, if there's a winner, if there's a hierarchy climber, he used to be a regular illustration in my sermons until he was elected, and now that gets more complicated. But I couldn't hold back from, of course, the Donald. And I've known a lot about the Donald for a long time. I grew up outside of New York City, and he was often in the local news. Everybody knew who Donald Trump was. And so here he is with his beautiful and successful family, all on display for the inauguration. And does anybody know what for his first dance and song of the inauguration, what the song was and what he sang?
My Way.
My Way. This is quintessential alpha male behavior. And of course, he's in a little bit of trouble with, one woman really isn't quite enough. And so you get as many women as you can and as beautiful as you can. The only problem is if he were a Persian emperor, it wouldn't be a problem because he would have a harem and concubines and all of that. The ancient world made accommodation for that. Today, not so much. And so he lies about it and get in trouble for lying. William Jefferson Clinton, also very much an alpha male, also got in a little bit of trouble for lying. In fact, got impeached for lying, not about a bunch of political things, but about Monica Lewinsky. But Donald likes to build things. And so you have Trump Tower, you have beautiful palaces. He's got his name on the side of an airplane. As a young man, he shows up on the cover of Playboy magazine. He loves to golf with probably people who are much better golfers than he is. An alpha male. Someone who is going to use his 70 or 80 years in life to take everything that he can and to know it through and through and to do it his way and to enjoy it. That is what the book of Ecclesiastes is about. I, the teacher, was king over Jerusalem and was king over Israel in Jerusalem. I applied my mind to study and to explore by wisdom all that is done under the heavens. Now, as I said, there are particular ways of being alpha males. I think Thomas Jefferson was quite a bit more philosophical. Barack Obama was quite philosophical. I don't know how philosophical Donald Trump is. But the author of Ecclesiastes enjoys and seeks all these things, but kind of separates himself and stands apart and says, I'm going to make a study of this to find out what is true, what is good, what is right, what is the best way to live under the sun. I applied my mind to study and to explore by wisdom all that is done under the heavens. What a heavy burden God has laid on mankind. He's an ancient, so he's not a contemporary skeptic about God. God is assumed. I have seen all the things that are done under the sun. All of them are meaningless, a chasing after the wind. It would be like if you told a child, there's a wind outside, go catch it. The child ran out, would feel the wind and try to catch it. And then the child would come in and you'd say, did you get it? And the child would say, no, I chased and I grabbed, but I couldn't catch it. That's exactly right. That's what life is like. You chase and you grab, but you can't catch it. What is crooked cannot be straightened. What is lacking cannot be counted. I said to myself, look, I have increased in wisdom more than anyone who has ruled over Jerusalem before me. I have more buildings. I have a bigger harem. I have more concubines. I have more books. I have more stuff. I've experienced much wisdom and knowledge. When I applied myself to understanding of wisdom, to finding out what success is, to writing the art of the deal. When I applied myself to understanding wisdom and also of madness and folly, I learned that this too is a chasing after the wind, for which much wisdom comes much sorrow. The more knowledge, the more grief. I said to myself, come now, I will test you with pleasure to find out what is good. But that also proved to be meaningless. Laughter, I said, is madness. And what does pleasure accomplish? I tried cheering myself with wine and embracing folly. I partied a lot and got stupid drunk and had a great time. My mind still guiding me with wisdom. As I was partying, I watched myself party and said, I'll see how much fun I'm really having. I wanted to see what was good for people to do under the heavens during the few days of their lives. I undertook great projects. I built houses for myself and planted vineyards. I made gardens and parks and planted all kinds of fruit trees in them. I made reservoirs up to water groves of flourishing trees. I bought male and female slaves and had other slaves who were born in my house. I also owned more herds and flocks than anyone in Jerusalem before me. I amassed silver and gold for myself and the treasure of kings and provinces. I acquired male and female singers, a harem as well, the delight of man's heart. I became greater by far than anyone in Jerusalem before me. And all of this, my wisdom stayed with me. I kept watching myself. I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I did it all. And I did it my way. My heart took delight in all of my labor. I loved it, and it was a reward for all my toil. Yet when I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun. So I hated life, because the work that is done under the sun was grievous to me. All of it was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. I hated all the things I had toiled for under the sun, because I must leave them to one who comes after me. Donald must leave them to his boys and his daughter. And who knows whether that person will be wise or foolish. Yet they will have control over all the fruit of my toil, into which I have poured my effort and my skill under the sun. Age of decay will have it all. This too is meaningless. So my heart began to despair over all my toilsome labor under the sun. For a person may labor for wisdom, knowledge, and skill, and yet they leave all they own to another who has not toiled for it. This too is meaningless. I only got $1 million from my father to start my business. Sheesh, what are you all saying about me? I inherited it? What people get for all of the toil and anxious striving in which they labor under the sun? All their days, their work is grief and pain. Even at night, their minds do not rest. This too is meaningless. Hevel, smoke, chasing after the wind. A person can do no better than to eat and drink and find satisfaction in their own toil. This too, I see, is from the hand of God. For without him, who can eat and find enjoyment? To the person who pleases God, God gives wisdom, God gives success, knowledge and happiness. But to the sinner, he gives the task of gathering and storing up wealth to hand it over to the one who pleases God. This too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. And now the famous song from the Byrds. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to scatter stones and a time to gather them. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to search and a time to give up. A time to keep and a time to throw away. A time to tear and a time to mend. A time to be silent and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. What do workers gain for their toil? I have seen the burden God has laid on the human race. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Yet no one can fathom what God has done from beginning to end. He then goes to the end of the book. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth, before the days of trouble come, and the years approach when you will say, I find no pleasure in them. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars grow dark, and the clouds return after the rain, when the keepers of the house tremble, and the strong men stoop, when the grinders cease because they are few, those are the teeth. That's what he means by that. When you lose all your teeth, when you don't want to eat, when every day is the same, when you're too old to care, when the doors to the street are closed and the sound of the grinding fades, when people rise up at the sound of birds, but all their songs grow faint, you can't hear anymore. When people are afraid of heights and of dangers in the street, when you're too old and you don't want to go out anymore because of the traffic. When the almond tree blossoms and the grasshopper drags itself along. Almond tree blossoms when? The end of winter. The grasshopper drags itself along. It can't hop anymore. It's a picture of old age. And its desire no longer is stirred. When the people go to their eternal home and the mourners go about the streets. Remember him before the silver cord is severed and the golden bowl is broken, before the pitcher is shattered at the spring and the wheel broken at the well, and the dust returns to the ground it came from, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. Everything is meaningless. The words of the wise are like goads. Those are pointed sticks that shepherds use to poke the sheep, to make them go where they don't want to go. Given by one shepherd. Be warned, my son, if anything in addition to them. Of making many books there is no end, and much study wearies the body. Now all has been heard. Here is the conclusion of the matter. Fear God and keep his commandments. For this is the duty of all mankind. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. Does that get you excited? Fear God and keep his commandments is the answer to the Alpha life. But then there's the book of Revelation. And the book of Revelation scares people because they don't want to read it. And if they do read it, it's full of scary pictures and scary images. But the book of Revelation, it's not revelations, it's revelation. And it's the revelation of Jesus. And you say, but the book of Revelation doesn't look a lot like Jesus because I read Jesus in the Gospels. And he's nice to prostitutes and sinners and tax collectors. And he's mean to people in authority. But Revelation is all about alpha leaders. Because the book of Revelation opens with Jesus as the alpha male. But he's the prototypical alpha male. And he's not exactly like alpha males we know. And they're asserting that he is in fact the alpha male. All authority in heaven and earth has been given to me. That's what he says. That's what he claims. And you wonder, well, what is it? Why is the book of Revelation so full of conflict and angels and fighting and blood? Blood up to your waist. Because there's conflict between alpha males to see who comes out on top. Ecclesiastes looks at meaning from the individual and the question, how to live, before the revelation of Jesus, the Son of Man. The struggle in one's own heart. How should I live? What do I want? What is worth giving my time to? What is worth giving my life to? What is worth giving myself to? Revelation looks at the whole world story and the struggle of human destiny. The book of Ecclesiastes offers the best that can be had under the sun. And after the alpha male has built projects and gained wealth and studied books and enjoyed a harem and had children and had flocks and had political success and conquered nations, he says, the best you can do is fear God and keep his commandments, because we all go to the grave, and everything you've amassed will be taken by another, and those people will probably have less wisdom than you. And you hear that and you think, that's the best? He says, yes. Meaningless, chasing after the wind, vanity, vapor, smoke. You can't grasp it. You come in, the child comes in after chasing after the wind and said, did you get it? No. Why not? Every time I ran, I couldn't. Right. That's life under the sun. The Son of Man comes. He's Son of Man, Daniel 7, book of Revelation. He fights the monsters. They're put down. He's given a kingdom that is eternal. The battle is fierce, so be bold and be strong. The suffering is real, but the end will come. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. Sea is the place that the monsters rise out of. The alpha males that trample all the beta males and everyone else. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down from heaven, from God, prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. You say, well, Pastor, all this gendered stuff. But you don't understand. In this story, we're all the wife, the bride, the woman. What do you mean we're all the wife, the bride, the woman? That's the role we play. Prepared as a bride, beautifully dressed for her husband, the alpha male. And I heard a voice from the throne saying, look, God's dwelling is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain. For the old order of things has passed away. The chasing after the wind, the life under the sun. There's a new sun. He who is seated on the throne said, I am making everything new. And he said, write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. He said to them, it is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega. You're both? Yes. I'm the Alpha and the Omega. The beginning and the end. To the thirsty, I will give water without cost from the spring of the water of life. Those who are victorious will inherit all this. I will be their God, and they will be my children. Well, we used to be wife, now we're children. But the cowardly, the unbelieving, the vile, the murderers, the sexually immoral, those who practice magic arts, the idolaters, and all liars, they will be consigned to the fiery lake of burning sulfur. This is the second death. Year's end, year's beginning. They're both right here. Beginning and end. It's all right here. We stand at the turning of the page. So we take stock. What are we chasing after? Wind? In what have we been trusting? Ourselves? What have been our goals? Alpha goals? We are most responsible for our individual level. The global plays on us as well. What do you need to turn away from? What new commitments should you make? The true and final Alpha, is Alpha and Omega, has come. So, if you want to be Alpha, you're like the Alpha. But which Alpha shall you be like? How can the promise of new heavens and earth be more real to you? Let's pray. Lord, the calendar flips, the clock restarts. We are not given brand new bodies yet. Each of us has less time under the sun than we had at this time last year. We do not have clean slates because we've written a lot on them, but at the turn of the year, our slate is cleanish. May we keep our eye on the Alpha, who is also the Omega. May we understand the promise of new heavens and new earth, of New Jerusalem, not the old Jerusalem under the sun. Help us, Lord, to listen. Give us your Holy Spirit that we might learn. May your kingdom come and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Amen. Amen. Would you stand?